Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with Limp, and I'm here with the final review I'm doing for Terminator Dark Fate Defiance. Now, I have covered this one previously, but they were nice enough to send me the final code for the game, so this is the final version. I had been playing the beta version previously, but now I get to review the full version. I do appreciate them sending it my way. So when it comes to Terminator, my opinion hasn't changed very much from my original time with the game. I got to experience it with just the first few missions, which was more just a basic RTS, which was good. And then I got to experience where the campaign started to open up a little bit, and you really got to dig into the missions and the supply system and maintaining your forces and trying to build up your resistance. So when it comes to the game itself, the full version of it, I do want to address a couple of little things up front. I did notice, as far as bugs goes, there was just one that I encountered. I didn't have any crashes, didn't have anything else, but there was one little stutter that came through, and it's like the game would pause for half a second, just hang for about a half second and then keep going. It did that maybe 3 times or so I was playing it. It didn't really affect gameplay. It wasn't a big deal. And I'm pretty sure a little bug like that's going to be ironed out in the next so many weeks or months or however long it's going to take them to iron it out. But it's not a huge deal. As far as everything else, good to go. The sound, the graphics, are all just as good as they were in the preview. I gotta say the sound effects really do work for this game, especially for the Terminators. They have that mechanical, deep sound to them, that terrifying robot sound. Think of RoboCop 2, right? When the big monster jumps out of the T-Rex and it's just that terrifying mechanical sound. And the Terminators here do have that kind of feel to them. They feel intimidating, and they should. They're Terminators. They should be scary. As far as the graphics go, graphics are good. I mean, it's AA category, like I was saying previously. So it's not like top of the line graphics, right? You're ray tracing this and ultra DLSS that. It's not to that level, but it is good. The explosions look good. The plasma blasts look good. Dropping in attacks, firing 50 cals. All of it has a nice deep feel to it. It seems like it's impactful, right? It doesn't feel light when the weapons are going off. Buildings get rubbled over time as you're putting more and more damage into them. If you're hiding your troops inside the building for cover, or calling in artillery, or pushing through with your tanks, everything just looks good. You notice little details as you're moving your troops, but you are playing an RTS style game, so you are pulled back a little bit from the action. You can zoom in to an extent, but for an RTS game, graphics are good. So gameplay itself, right? The core game. We've got the campaign, we've got multiplayer, and we got skirmish. Talk about campaign first. Campaign it's good and it's bad, and I'm going to narrow it down to one thing. One thing makes the difference on this, and I hate to say it, but they tweaked the difficulty. It's just a bit too much. And the way the campaign plays, you're almost forced to save scum, right? You're going to quick save and quick load a lot during this campaign. The only way you're not going to do that is if you're a sadist who doesn't mind just getting effectively soft locked, right, into a section of your campaign where you really can't progress much further. I'm not going to spoil too much of the story, but as you go on through it, you'll lose access, right, to certain resources. Bases might get destroyed, whatever happens, but your core group of forces kind of carries on for the most part, right? And that means that if you have a very bad previous mission, you might have the next mission where you don't really have the forces needed to carry this out. And I'm going to actually reference back to that experience that I had in my previous playthrough of the game, because it exemplifies it so well. In that during that mission, the choices that I made led this led my forces to a point to where they were almost wiped out. I had lost all my vehicles. I was almost completely out of ammo. It had just been a brutal fight. I was surrounded, almost wiped out, just really taking a beating. But I was able to pull it out there at the last minute.
Everyone's dead. Retreat. Move quick. On our feet. That's outside. We'll need some wheels for that. I'm swarmed!
This is Movement Strike Team Leader Jessica Kidd.
Good to hear your voice, Strike Team.
Founders, huh? Well, okay.
We're currently on the counterattack against a reinforced Legion
Understood. I'll assault along the road with your units supporting me.
Having a little more never hurts.
Okay. I'll send you a couple of supply trucks. Now let's... The gas station is ours. We're going to have to regroup before we move on to the next target.
And survive, right? Really nail-biting experience, and that mission was fun in and of itself. Here's the problem with that, though, is that I've lost so much that I don't have the resources necessary to carry on. Losing Humvees, losing tanks, losing squads, rangers, snipers, EMP guy, the scientist dude. Whatever you lose, you're not going to have access to it. And it leads to that experience to where you're going to want to save scum. So you might be pushing on, you're trying to explore through the city, and you think you've cleared out the area, but you haven't. And now, as you pull your vehicles up, because your infantry scouted, you're trying to pull your vehicles up, suddenly some Terminator pops out with a missile and blows up your tank or blows up your Humvee. And now you're down that vehicle. And you're going to want to save scum that because you need that vehicle. You can't really progress on later on. It really sucks to beat a mission and then find out that what you've got left really can't carry on to the next mission. You might have crews, but no vehicles to put the crews in, right? Or you might have vehicles, but no crews, or whatever the case may be. So if you're going to play this game, you have to kind of be okay with save scumming because the difficulty is fairly up there. Honestly, I think they need to tone down the Terminators a little bit too much. They're machines, but they're almost machine precise in everything. They know all the angles where they got to shoot from. They know the clear lines of sight, but I get it. Like, they're machines. You would expect them to do that. You would expect to take losses, but the problem is you really can't do it in the way that they're doing these supplies, right? And have it like that to where you're just getting wiped out and having barely anything survive the mission. Well, you're not going to have the resources, the supplies, the points, right? The reinforce your units to progress on. You can only buy so much. You can't just keep restocking it over and over and over again. If you're a sadist, right, you like taking a beating, you like seeing if you can make it or not, you're really into the roguelites, right, where you go as far as you can and try again, go for it. The rest of us, we're going to end up having to save scum. Honestly, I think they could have kind of alleviated this a little bit where the difficulty wasn't such a hit had there been some type of scavenge, right? Something where at the end of the mission, there's X amount of civilians that you've found who are able to join your forces, or certain vehicles, armored technicals, or Bradley fighting vehicles, whatever the case may be, depending on the mission, were found in the associated area, and maybe you have a set amount of points. You can take so much of this stuff to kind of rebuild your forces back up. If you had been given that, right, not just the supply points, but an ability to scavenge resources, like a list at the end of the mission of things that you can pick up and take with you to keep fighting on. I think that would have taken that hurt out, so you wouldn't feel that gut punch if you lose certain specific assets as you go along. Like I said, you do have the ability to spend your supply points to buy new resources from other factions, new units, new vehicles, new crews, whatever. But the problem is you have to also spend those supply points to maintain your forces, to rearm them, to refuel them. And if you're having to spend all of your supply points buying new units, then you don't have the supply points simply to move your force to the next mission. It's a bit too much of a hit. Something needs to be toned down a little bit. And honestly, I'm willing to bet, especially reading some of the comments others have made on it, that they're probably going to tone that down a little bit. I anticipate a patch coming up to adjust the hit as far as supply points or things that you take with losses from mission to mission. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil the campaign. I like the storyline. I think the storyline is actually really good. The specific missions themselves are great in the fact that you have multiple different objectives spread across the map that you have to choose what's more important to you. Do you help this faction? Do you help this faction? If you help these guys, well, you'll get more resources. But if you help these guys, you'll get more equipment. Things like that really play well in the missions. So the individual missions are great. The overall campaign is just a little too punishing. So once that's tweaked a little bit, I think most Terminator fans will really enjoy the campaign. When it comes to the multiplayer side, I'm a solo player. I don't play multiplayer in most games anyway, so I'm not going to touch on it too much. I will say that I noticed there aren't a whole lot of maps, and I'm going to reference the Skirmish. In reference to this, there is, like I said, the multiplayer and then Skirmish. They're pretty much the same thing. One's solitaire, one's multiplayer. And the problem with Skirmish mode is there's only 4 maps. And there's only 2 types of gameplay. There's domination and there's assault, right? And assault, you're basically trying to take control of the map from 1 or 2 starting areas, but there's only a single map for that. For domination, it's basically control points spread across the map. From what I saw, I think average 5. It's always going to be an odd number. So you're trying to gain control of the most amount of control points across the board. That's actually the footage you're seeing in the background. I took control of Legion's forces and we're fighting off, I believe it's called the Movement, in a skirmish map. And I'm trying to gain control of as many of these points as I can. The skirmish mode works well for what it is, but it's kind of pared down. It needs more maps. It needs more forces, right? More choice to it. It's really stripped down to just playing the RTS. You get requisition points periodically throughout the match that you have to buy new forces. You don't have access to your heaviest equipment starting out. So like your heavy tanks, you can't start with those. You're generally going to start with your light combat vehicles and infantry. And then it gears up as you go along. By the end of it, you'll have your heavy tanks, your helos, the long range artillery, which I really freaking love that thing. That thing is awesome because you can hit all the way across the board. I had a couple like Spider Legion artillery pieces that I was using to call down shots on the movement forces. You do have to have some type of sight line or spotters calling in. That way they can aim it in, but I didn't even issue the order. I wasn't even focused. I thought the unit originally was just a big gun, and all of a sudden, boom, plasma bolts start raining down. Awesome. But like I said, the problem really comes down to the fact that there's just not enough there. They need more maps for the skirmish mode and probably some different game types. Something that kind of leans more towards the campaign, because one of the things that works really well for the campaign is the fact that the mission isn't just straightforward. It isn't go kill this and then that's the end of the mission. You have different choices and different objectives as you move along. I'd like to see that kind of put into the skirmish mode. They had more maps and a little more variety of what your actual objectives are in the skirmish mode. Skirmish mode would be pretty good. But as it is now, I honestly think people would get bored with it after a little while, because there's only so many times you can play the same map against the same forces before you're like, I've kind of seen all it has to offer. So when it comes to Terminator, this is not a game for someone who wants a multiplayer RTS. I hate to say that. I think they'll probably expand it in the future, but as it stands currently, I don't think it's going to offer you enough to have a large multiplayer component, right? Large community really going for it. I'm sure there are going to be a few hardcore players who are really into it, because the gameplay, the back and forth is good. The units fighting each other is really awesome. Just the kinetic warfare and how hard the punches and the hits are is really well done. I love it. There just isn't enough of it yet. We'll have to see how it pans out. For where the game now stands currently, it really comes down to, do you want to play through the campaign or not? And like I said, the campaign is really good. It's not great. You're going to have to be okay with save scumming it, or you're going to have to be okay with having to restart your campaign a few different times until you learn everything and can maintain your forces throughout it. I think that's going to appeal to a certain demographic of players. But others like me, I don't want to keep replaying the same mission over and over again until I get it perfect. I'm more likely to save scum it just so I can get through it quicker. The story's fun. The combat is great. I think it's worth it. But if you are really against save scumming, you might want to think about it before you jump in. As for the price is $39.99. I think that's fair for the level of gameplay that you are getting. It is an IP game, meaning that it's based on a popular IP, in this case Terminator. So that is going to increase the price a little bit. $39.99 is fair. The campaign is good enough to be worth playing through a couple different times. If it was just a one-off, it probably wouldn't be worth it. But the fact that you can make multiple different choices along the campaign and have things play out completely differently increases its value. It's not a one-off campaign. It is something that you can do more than once. Now, to be fair, that is past the first few missions. Missions 1, 2, and 3 basically kind of introducing you to the game, and then afterwards is when it opens up a little bit. But that opening it up does give the player a lot of agency, a lot of choice, which increases its value. Skirmish mode multiplayer, it's a bonus. It's icing on the cake. Really, the campaign is what is making this game stand out. But anyway, that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Y'all take care, and I will catch you in the next one.